Hello and welcome to Gotham Sound TV. Is that what we're calling this? What are we calling this? Gotham Sound TV. Excellent. We are here, my name is Peter Schneider. We are here with Glenn Sanders of Zaxcom. We're here to discuss a few things. We're going to discuss some elements of the upcoming changes to the spectrum and how Zaxcom has products that answer to that. And we'll also discuss the functionality of the Zaxcom wireless. So without further ado, let me introduce Glenn Sanders of Zaxcom, President, CEO of Zaxcom.
Thank you, Peter.
Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here today.
Great to have you. Let's jump right into it because we got a lot to cover. For everybody out there, we're doing this show right now with Glenn at Zaxcom, and then in an hour and a half at 3:30, Allison Jackson comes in to discuss Don't Think Twice. So very excited to do both of these shows. So jumping right into it.
Can I stay for that one?
Please do. Can you operate one of the cameras for that one?
I don't know if my contract allows me to do that. Right. It could be a different rate.
I'll talk to your people.
Okay.
All right, so starting with what I like to call the 30,000-foot perspective on this, let's talk about why Zaxcom products offer a solution to some of the upcoming spectrum issues. What are the upcoming spectrum issues?
Well, the spectrum certainly is changing. I mean, with what the FCC is doing and reallocating frequencies and packing in TV stations closer together and just basically eliminating the use of approximately 575 to 700 megahertz, you know, we're losing so much.
So just to catch people up, and I'm sure a lot of the sound mixers know this, but some of our viewers may not know this. The FCC has been mandated to come up with a more efficient use of the spectrum and also to make money for Congress. And so they've chosen to do this by incentivizing the broadcast stations to sort of reallocate themselves, to come up with a number, monetary value of how they could reallocate themselves. So they're going to compact and push down what we now understand is what 623 megahertz. I mean, it's a lot sort of lower than we thought it would.
Right. From what we understand, it could be 575 to 700 megahertz is going away.
Right.
You know, I mean, no one knows until it actually happens, but that's what the word on the street is.
It's a huge chunk of what we've formerly used, what we do use for wireless microphones. So we know that that's coming down the pike.
Well, that's right. And, for a long time, the wireless manufacturers, including Zaxcom, have looked at this and said, okay, what are we going to be able to do to allow our customer base to continue to utilize wireless microphones in the way that they always have? They won't be using the same wireless mics that they have in the past because, as you said, the frequency use must be much more efficient. And I mean, the efficiency has a direct relationship to how much spectra each transmitter takes when it's operating.
Right. So why not just why don't we all just sort of get wireless mics that are in the spectrum that's left, like whatever is not allocated to the telecommunications companies, and why don't we just operate in a much smaller spectrum?
Well, we certainly will do that, but in places where
with the equipment that we have already.
Well, the problem with the equipment we have is that for the most part, it's too wide.
Wide in terms of?
Wide in terms of the bandwidth of the transmission and the actual spectrum that you need to accommodate that. Mm-hmm. For years, FM analog wireless mics have taken up a 200 kilohertz channel. And within our modulation concerns, which basically, again, means that transmitters that will combine with other transmitters to cause interference, you don't have a lot of spectrum to work with relative to what's left, where maybe you're spacing your FM transmitters half a megahertz apart. Even though the transmission of that transmitter is a 200 kilohertz transmission, it does require quite a bit more spectra. I mean, maybe in a typical frequency block that has been 25 megahertz, I mean, maybe you're going to get 10, 12, 13, 14 transmitters, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And that just simply won't do going forward. I think a big problem that we have...
Because that number, that 10 to 12 channels per 25 megahertz block, that number assumes that that's clean spectrum that it's operating in.
Well, that's right. And there won't be any clean spectrum going forward, especially if you're going to take all the TV stations and repack them into maybe 65 or 70 megahertz worth of available space, somewhere between 500 and 575 megahertz. What you may have to use may only be in a crowded metropolitan area, maybe 10 megahertz, 15 megahertz. So what's worked well in the past is just really not going to work well going forward. And the time frame for this to happen is very soon. Mm-hmm. I mean, what we're looking at is a situation where the FCC has sold the spectrum off, and while currently it's not illegal to utilize transmitters in the 600 megahertz range, or high 570, 80, 590 megahertz, there's going to come a point where the people that purchase the spectrum are going to basically switch on their new gear. So you could go out and do a job and then come back, the next day, the next week, and find that your wireless simply won't work anymore. And I'm not trying to fearmonger, but it's just a fact that if you have wireless companies that have spent billions of dollars on frequencies and have the ability to turn on their transmitters, which are basically sitting ready to be switched on, right now, they're going to do that because they want that spectrum clear, because it's their spectrum.
So this is different, because we went through this with 700 megahertz. And 700 megahertz, there was a long time before stuff was rolled out. So how is this different than that?
Well, I don't know that specifically it's different because there's too many scenarios that you can think of, but it's up to each individual company to make up their own schedule when they're going to go live with something or going to start testing something. I think the major difference would be that when 700 to 800 went away, there was still 200 megahertz of spectrum to work with. This time, there isn't.
But yes, agreed. This time there's a lot less spectrum that we'll have when the smoke clears. But I do think that this is different than the 700 megahertz rollout, because a lot of that technology wasn't in place on the consumer side yet. And so there wasn't quite that sort of push to get as many tower engineers working as possible. Whereas now I think the technology is in place on the consumer side. This is just a matter of repacking.
Well, that very well could be. I mean,
and I think we will see a faster rollout this time.
It's quite likely, yeah. I mean, again, exactly what will happen, where it will happen, when it will happen, I don't think that anyone could know exactly what's going on, and that's the problem. That if you don't prepare for this, and you're out there and you're using your wireless gear, and then all of a sudden you get caught in a bad place, that's not going to be good. And what we're trying to do is to alert people to the fact that wireless frequencies, wireless use has to change. I mean, basically, in our opinion, there's two things you can do. And we have both of those things. You can pack your frequencies closer together, and we have technology that now allows us to do that. And in non-live applications, you can record on the transmitters. Both of those things are pretty unique to Zaxcom, but that's the direction we've gone in. And what I'd like to do is explain to you, the technology of what we've done and how this helps.
Sure. Okay. So let's do a little role playing. I'm a customer. You're a salesperson. Ready? Tagging you in?
I was gonna.
Oh, what? You don't like customers?
I love customers. I'm just joking around with you.
All right. All right.
It's dealers.
I never joke with customers. So let's game this out. I am interested in buying a wireless system. I'm looking at different technologies. What technology? What does the Zaxcom world offer to me?
Well, Zaxcom has always been a digital wireless microphone company. That's how we founded the company. When I say founded the company, I should say founded the product line, because we were in the audio business with our Diva recorders before we were in the wireless part of the business, which we've now been in for about 14 years. So we have quite a bit of experience here. But it was always my intention to make digital wireless, because everything that we use today, whether you know it or not, is digital. I mean, your cell phone is digital, your television is digital. You can get your terrestrial radio as digital. All these things started as analog and have now moved to digital. It is almost ridiculous to think of an FM wireless or any wireless that can be heard on a radio scanner to be something that you would want to move ahead with for a variety of reasons. I can put it in terms of what you get with digital wireless.
Okay, good.
What you get at this point, and this is very germane to the current frequency dilemma that's coming, is we now have different digital modulations. We have actually 4 digital modulations that our new transmitter, the TRX LT and LA 3.5, will do. You don't have to get a close-up on this, don't worry about that. But we have four modulations. And those modulations and what they do are as follows. We have what we call US mono modulation, which is the first modulation we came up with. It's 200 kilohertz wide. The signal is 200 kilohertz wide. And with this new transmitter, you can space that 400 kilohertz apart. And the reason that we still offer this is because it's compatible with every transmitter we've ever put out. Okay.
But only the new transmitters can be spaced 400 kilohertz apart.
With that modulation, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a chart available, so there won't be a test at the end.
Okay.
But yeah, that is true. We have our stereo modulation, which also, with these new transmitters, you can space 400 kilohertz apart. That offers 2 channels of wireless, and that's, again, 200 kilohertz signal, 400 kilohertz spacing. Then introduced with the Hudson River video we put out was the XR modulation, which stands for extended range. XR modulation has a little bit longer latency, which is approximately 6 milliseconds. Okay. And that is a very, very easily decoded modulation. So if you need really great distance, you can get it with that.
Is that the only trade-off, is the latency?
Yes, you have a little bit longer latency, and when I talk about latency, I really almost shouldn't, because for the film television business, it is really an irrelevant factor. I mean, it's much less than 1 video frame, and when someone's recording to a file for a TV show, motion picture, really not a factor. The only time the transmission latency really becomes a factor is when the talent is listening to themselves through an IFB. So it's really a broadcast function.
Sure. I mean, I would argue too, if you had to mix a boom mic with, hardwired boom mic with a wireless pack.
You see, I would argue that, I don't think we need to argue, but I would make the point that because all modern mixer recorders have delay in them, that you would simply delay the boom a little bit. And when you think about it, if your lav is basically 6 inches from the source of the audio, and the boom is 5 feet, well then you need no delay, and they're more in time than they would be as if you had no latency. So your example doesn't hold up well in this case.
Yeah, but
you're trying. It's okay.
I would say it's a known. That's a sort of known standard for people sort of transitioning into this world. They're used to dealing with the phasing of a boom.
Well, that's right, and it's just something that is good to know, but not a showstopper by any means, and barely a consideration. So, let me move on to the two new modulations that we have, because these are really quite interesting. Because of what's going on with the spectra, we decided that we needed a skinnier or more narrow modulation, because everything eventually gets to be a little skinnier.
Yeah, I see what you did there. Yeah.
You like that? Okay. So it's a good thing. So what we've done is we have two new modulations. One we showed at NAB and is now delivered. It's called ZHD48 officially. And that modulation is really only 50 kilohertz wide. So where, if I can give a graphic here, if this is our old 200 kilohertz modulation, okay, this is what we're doing right now. I mean, it's literally a quarter as wide. And when you use it with a standard Zaxcom receiver, you can space as close as 200 kilohertz channel to channel with no intermod. Now we have a new receiver that has a tighter filter in it, and people like broadcasters would buy that receiver. I mean, football people, I mean, anywhere where you had a tremendous amount of wireless you had to put together in a small space. So with that receiver and our new ZHD50 modulation, you can space as close as 100 kilohertz.
Wow.
Now think about that. You can get like 250 transmitters or channels in a standard frequency block that's like 25 megahertz.
Sure.
So where you went from maybe 12, 14, 15 transmitters, now with this, you could do 250 transmitters.
And is there any trade-off in terms of latency or frequency response?
In the ZHD, well, we'll get to that. I mean, there's no trade-off in frequency response.
Yeah.
We have two ZHD modes. The mode I just described is actually the longest latency. Because what we've had to do is we've had to take the audio, and to make it still sound absolutely transparent, uncompanded, indistinguishable from a hard wire, we've had to compress it. That takes time. Okay? So ZHD 48 has a latency of 18 milliseconds. Now that is not the mode that sound mixers are going to typically be using. That's more a very broadcast thing, something that you would use in a stand-up interview, during the Super Bowl or other events. Okay, where something around half a frame of latency is perfectly more than acceptable. And in situations like that, you've got multiple frames of delay on the video anyway that have already been compensated for.
Right.
So
you would just dial the compensation back a little bit.
That's right.
And I could see that high density mode being useful in reality.
Absolutely. The unexpected thing about ZHD48 is how tremendously decodable it is. Where analog wireless and other digital wireless can be very subject to reflections, where reflections are definitely going to cause dropouts, they're going to mess with the signal. ZHD48 is really good with reflections. Reflections, basically, rather than taking away from the signal, tend to enhance the signal. So, we were very surprised when we went out and tested the ZHD48 before NAB, because we're like, no, this doesn't make sense. How are we getting this distance? And we actually had to kind of look at it and figure out like what was really happening. Because I don't have those glasses that let us see the RF bouncing around. But it was really the reflections that were reinforcing the signal. And this was borne out by independent tests that were actually done prior to NAB by Rado Stefano and some other New York sound mixers that just absolutely were blown away by the fact that this thing was giving them far better results than their FM wireless could, or ever did.
And so this means indoors or in a dense urban exterior, it would actually perform better.
It would perform better, that is correct.
Wow.
I mean, there's zero penalty in distance for digital wireless. I mean, basically, if you look at FM wireless, you look at digital wireless, it's really only governed by the physics of it at this point. And again, the reflections can be quite helpful to the digital side, not so much to the analog side.
Sure.
So, I mean, the range on digital is just almost beyond belief, which doesn't mean you're not going to get interfered with. Of course, you can be interfered with like anything else.
Right.
But-
What's the fourth modulation mode?
Fourth modulation is something brand new. We're going to talk about it here for the first time. It's called ZHD 98. I almost call this my Goldilocks modulation because I think it's just right.
What do the numbers mean?
The numbers basically account for the modulation bandwidth. Okay. So with ZHD 96, again, no one's ever heard of this before. It is delivering right now. It is approximately...
And ZHD 96, that's...
It's ZHD 96.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, we've gone back and forth on this. It's officially, it's ZHD 48 and ZHD 96.
Okay, good.
ZHD 96 is effectively 100 kilohertz wide signal. So our older stuff, okay, our original stuff is 200 kilohertz.
Yeah.
ZHD 96 is this wide, and then ZHD 48 is this wide. So with ZHD 96, what we've done is we've kept all the best stuff. We have the lower latency of around 6 milliseconds. We have the narrower signal, which you could still space 200 kilohertz apart. Okay, not 100 kilohertz, but 200 kilohertz spacing.
Fair enough, yeah.
And again, with no intermod, no skipping of channels, nothing. So you're going to get 128 channels in 25 megahertz.
Wow.
Still probably 4 times to 8 times better than you're getting today with the old school FM gear. Okay, and you know it's compatible with all of our current transmitters, our older receivers. I mean, it's just really, again, I think a modulation that's just going to be right for film and television production, right for broadcasters because they're using IFB where you want to keep the latency down under 10 milliseconds.
Sure.
So it's got a lot of good bits in it. And still it picks up the enhanced reflection capability of our ZHD wireless. And that's not all. It's also compatible with the QRX in a dual mode. So it's the ZHD modulation that you can receive on a QRX 200 receiver. You can receive 2 transmitters in one receiver.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so it maintains the dual capability of the QRX. So again, just to go back, we have US mono. See, actually there's 5 modulations. 5, count them. So we have US mono, we have the stereo mode, we have XR, we have ZHD 96, ZHD 48. 48. Got to get that right. Because going forward, okay, I can see people selecting the modulation that's right for them. Okay, it's not going to be a world where, you know, you're using a 200 kilohertz wide, you know, old school FM transmitter, and that's going to be fine because you could find yourself at some big event and there's only 5 or 10 megahertz available, and they want to put in, you know, some number of wireless that are not going to work.
Right.
So being able to dial in the modulation that you're assigned is going to be something going forward that's going to be very, very important. And, you know, the advantage of digital, and because we really didn't talk so much about that at this point.
Sure.
I mean, and there are advantages that are particular to Zaxcom. I mean, the biggest one, of course.
Let's talk generally advantages. of
Okay,
digital.
that's fine. I mean, basically, you know, within the coverage area, you have a signal that is always going to be of the highest audio quality. Audio quality does not vary based on interference or, you know, or range. It's always going to be within the coverage area, absolutely like a hard wire. You know, so that's a big deal. Certainly, there's no compander distortion. There's no noise reduction distortion. There's no antenna switching, you know, artifacts. I mean, these things are, with a digital system, you just don't have those things.
Because this is transmitting as pure data.
It's pure data. It's not decodable on a scanner. It's ones and zeros. And, you know, it's going to give you, you know, as our customers have, you know, had over the years, just a transmission quality that is just unobtainable with any FM style system. So, those are the great things. Aside from that, we do have the Zaxcom feature set, which is certainly, on its own, a very important thing. Recording being, I think, the most important thing.
Yes.
Of course, recording with time code.
Uh-huh.
So all the transmitters are doing that. Having a time code reader generator in the transmitter.
Right. So that it can actually output or receive time code.
Well, it doesn't output time code.
Uh-huh.
When I say generator,
Yeah.
it generates so that the card is stamped with the correct file.
Good.
Because the way the time code system works, it just has to have a very, very minor blip of received time code, and then it very accurately will keep generating code for itself.
Got it.
Yeah. Now, of course, they're remote controllable, and as such, they're receiving the time code through the remote control. So you switch them on, it's got the time code in it, you don't have to jam it. And it's going to maintain that code with subframe accuracy because the Zaxnet that transmits to this, we didn't talk about Zaxnet.
Well, we'll get to that.
I don't know, if we have time, we'll get to that. But, it's going to give you a subframe accurate time code in all the transmitters. And of course, all the transmitters, when you use it with our Zaxcom Diva recorder, can replay and allow you to re-record. So it's the ultimate backup.
Sure.
Because if you want to talk about what happens on recorders, and things don't always go right on recorders, sound mixers don't always roll.
Sure.
So if something goes wrong with the recorder, rather than having a secondary recorder on the card, if you have a Zaxcom wireless system, you've got a virtual multi-track recording system.
Well, and as we've seen in Comedians in Cars, or just about any episodic or feature where there's a car involved, it seems like, or a walk and talk,
Right.
where they just want the actors to start from farther and farther away, or the camera gets in the car and then the car drives away at the end of a chase scene or something, or walk and talk. Having this as a tool in your arsenal is incredibly powerful.
There are shows that are being produced today that you could not do in the way that they're doing them without body pack recording.
Right.
I mean, basically, it is a necessary thing that shows have come to rely on. I mean, shows like Comedians in Cars, shows like The Island.
Yeah, where it's written in, basically.
Well, that's right. Yeah. If they didn't have this, the show would have to be done differently. It just would be. So the recording has become an absolute game changer as far as the way shows are produced, and often a lifesaver. Because without this recording, especially if something goes wrong, there is no other record of the audio. And that in itself is just a wonderful thing. Another big feature we have is NeverClip. I mean, a lot of our customers have found out how amazing NeverClip is because, without being able to remote control the gain of the transmitter, which only we can do at this point, you have audio that is either too low in level or it's maybe hitting the limiter because it's not at exactly the right level.
Right.
And because Zaxcom through Zaxnet, through the mixer on the sound card or through the recorder can adjust the level even in mid-shot while the dialogue is happening. It's just an amazing tool, that we have with our wireless system.
Yeah.
But in any case, the NeverClip part of it allows you to avoid the distortion of a compressor because it extends the linear range of the audio by an extra 20 dB.
Wow.
Yeah, where a normal wireless transmitter might have a dynamic range, and this is kind of a phony figure because dynamic range is usually including compressors and what have you.
Sure.
But the real dynamic range of a wireless mic is somewhere around 90 dB. With our system, we've extended that to somewhere between 110 and 120 dB, without the problem or without the distortion of an onboard compressor.
Wow.
Yeah, so NeverClip is a really cool feature, something we've had in the recorders for quite a long time, and something that we put into the wireless a few years ago. And it's just worked out great in enhancing the audio quality of a wireless. I mean, there are many movies where the sound mixer has said that the post-production department has called them and said, how did you get that audio? Nothing sounds like that. I'm probably not talking out of school if I do a shout out to my friend Jeff Wexler, who, when he did the movie 42, the story goes that there was some Zaxcom wireless used on the show, and a second unit was using analog FM wireless, and they called Jeff and they said, how come yours sounds like this? He says, well, I'm using Zaxcom wireless. That's why it sounds like the way it sounds.
Wow.
So they knew that the systems were different. They could hear it.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean that's, I'm sure that happens, from time to time, but I think that was a great story. Thank you, Jeff.
So we've talked about how these wireless answer issues with the upcoming spectrum. We've gotten into some of the features of the wireless themselves that set them apart from the competition. They're also part of a whole ecosystem from Zaxcom.
Well, that's right. The ZaxNet system basically ties together everything that we do. I mean, the recorders, the wireless, the IFB, it's all one system. But saying that, there's something that I want to make sure that we absolutely get across to everyone watching.
Yeah.
That just because you don't have every piece of the system doesn't mean that you're at a disadvantage. If you buy the wireless and only the wireless, okay, you're still recording with timecode. You can jam the transmitter if you want to do that.
Right.
Okay, you still have Neverclip. You still have digital transmission.
So a customer can buy into any or all of them?
You can buy into any and all pieces. I mean, that's just things that are, make the wireless stand alone.
Sure.
If you look at the IFB system, the ERX3 TCD, with that you have enhanced audio quality over FM monitor receivers. You have timecode transmission. You have a timecode generator in that is as accurate as any sync box. In fact, I would tell you that our IFB system, the ERX, because it is RF based, it is self-calibrating. Every show you take it on, okay, when you switch that thing on and you've got timecode coming from your master generator through the Zaxcom IFB system, each one of the IFB receivers, I kind of wish I had one now, but each one of the IFB receivers self-calibrates itself over time. And that's the problem with sync boxes. Sync boxes are only as good as their last calibration.
Right.
Not to mention, you've got to go out to the camera multiple times during the day, especially to, if you're going to rejam or if there's anything that causes the master generator to change.
Sure.
With the Zaxcom system, you don't have to do that. You always have perfect subframe accuracy on the timecode. So again, with the IFB system, you've got that. You've got built-in individual delay in the receivers, so that if you're watching picture monitor, if you're watching per IFB receiver. So you've got all of these great standalone features for the IFB system. You have to, of course, understand that it's a 2.4 gigahertz system, so the range of that system is not going to be that of UHF systems, but it was designed to basically be an IFB system for your typical ENG shoot.
Sure.
You go out with our Nomad that has the built-in transmitter. You go out with IFB receivers. You can take the IFB receivers, put them on cameras, put them on talent. It's almost like Zaxcom Swiss Army knife.
Sure.
And again, by itself, a great standalone system.
Right. You don't need it to make other parts of it function.
That's right. Yeah. It's on its own. It is, again, very, very standalone.
Wow.
Okay. If you look at the recorders, I mean, the recorders have features, again, that are just so absolutely standalone. Hey, that was a good cutaway. That worked. So if you look at the recorders, the recorders have the MARF system, which time and time again, the MARF recording, which is mobile audio recording format, has proven to be, even today, such a tremendous asset. I mean, a week doesn't go by where you don't read of someone saying, how do I recover lost audio? My recorder ate the files. And it doesn't matter how many cards you have in a recorder, how many power supplies you have. Okay, if a recorder processor crashes and it writes all over the cards and the power system, isn't going to do anything to help that.
Right.
Redundant power is great for making sure there's power on it, but that's not the only thing that goes wrong.
Right.
Media goes bad, processors crash. MARF is the only system that allows you to recover audio files even after you intentionally erase the directory.
That's right.
You know, someone can call and say, you know what, we lost the audio for the show, do you still have it?
I got that call last week.
Exactly, and someone could be at home and say, you know, I erased the card, but you can just go to your Nomad and say, you know what, would you please restore the audio in the card?
Yeah.
And the MARF will rebuild the directory. So it's a very unique thing.
Yes.
You
I
know,
want to go back to the wireless for just a second.
Okay, then I want to go back to the recorder.
Okay, and that'll be wrapping it up then, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think because I encourage people to ask questions. No questions yet, but
That's okay.
I do. You know, I went to a meeting with the engineers of the FCC who were sort of looking for input from end users and dealers of audio equipment, and one of the interesting comments that was sort of talked about at this meeting was how we are using, and this is going back 3 or 4 years, technology invented in the 30s. You know, that was perfected in the 30s, basically, in terms of FM. And they specifically mentioned, you know, like Major Armstrong had perfected this technology. And I, you know, it's interesting that they were sort of pushing the manufacturers to come up with a new kind of modulation. And I do have to say it's nice that that's what you did.
Well, thank you.
You had it. It was already out at the time of this meeting. Of course, it was only a couple of years ago.
Right.
But you really have perfected, and I think this is the sort of thing that they were talking about or thinking about.
Well, that's right. Yeah. I guess if I can quote Dylan, you don't have to be a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. You know, I mean, you could see it. You know, if you're going to lose spectrum, you know, what do? You either find new spectrum, or you live on a smaller piece of property.
Right.
You know, it is a lot like land, and you know, because we are digital, because we have a software-defined radio platform. That's what our transmitter is. You know, and I think it's fair to say that the wireless you buy from Zaxcom today, okay, you know, is FCC approved today, and any changes that the FCC makes to the allowable spectra, okay, I mean, if the FCC comes in and says, you know, you are no longer going to be able to use a wireless that's 180 or 200 kilohertz,
Right.
which is a real possibility.
I mean, they're talking about that actively.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
So from Zaxcom, you already have 2 other choices that are here today. You can buy them right now.
Right. And presumably, if it really came to it, you would issue a firmware update that might lock out any of the, well, actually, from what they're talking about,
I mean,
yeah, they wouldn't have to.
I can't imagine that they would go below 100 kilohertz.
Yeah, right.
You know, and if they do, I mean, we're there now.
Right.
So, you know, people can buy our wireless today, and they can, you know, be very, very assured that, you know, the law will not change to the point where that will not be an acceptable solution going forward. You know,
Right.
I think it's money well spent in the technology, in your investment in your sound kit. You know, and when you look at, you know, everything else we offer with the feature set, you know, I would hope that a customer would look at this and basically say, you know, this is something that makes sense to me.
Good. All right. We do have a question. It's a comment. ERX with external antenna would be great. Any plans to improve Zaxnet range?
Well, you know, I don't know that an ERX with an external antenna would improve the range. Now,
Is that because it's of the frequency that it operates on, or?
No, because the ERX already has 4 internal antennas.
Uh-huh.
The ERX is a diversity receiver with antenna switching on each side.
Uh-huh.
So it's already a little bit of a crazy structure.
Right.
And what you pick up with that is, you know, if I had one external antenna, you know, it wouldn't give you the diversity
Right.
that you have now. I'm not saying that it wouldn't be helpful.
Right.
It might be.
Right. Or I mean, I would argue then, what about 2 external antennas? I mean, I do know. I do know what Sam is asking about. You know, I mean, certainly I wish ERX had better range.
Well, we all wish ERX had better range. I mean, I think it's, you know, I think the range is really what we designed it to do. We also have, you know, certain power limitations on the IFB200 transmitter.
On the transmit side.
Yeah.
And there are people that have used external antennas on the transmit side, like you know, mast mounted.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can absolutely increase the range by using, you know, high gain antennas on the transmitter side. I mean, they would be directional. They would double the distance. So there are certainly things that you can do.
Right. Just in a bag, it's tough.
It's in a bag. It is tough, and you know, I think we all have to remember there's a reason that we don't make 2.4 gig wireless transmitters and receivers.
Right.
Because, you know, the range on 2.4 gig is limited. It doesn't go through walls very well.
Yeah.
It is highly reflective. You know, it's, you know, for an IFB receiver, when you're standing, you know, 10, 20 feet from the sound mixer watching the action, perfect.
Right.
But, you know, it's not what I would consider a traditional IFB system. I mean, a Comtech has great range, available in VHF, UHF.
Right.
You know, is the audio quality the same? No. Is
Right.
the feature set the same? No. But, you know, if range is what you've got to have in that, then that is the solution.
Sure.
You know, I mean, you know, we don't make those systems, you know, today, and we may never make those systems. I mean,
Right.
you know, we're not out to duplicate anybody. You know, we're out to make products that are very unique and provide solutions that are just not out there. I think we have become very mainstream in what we do, and are becoming even more so.
Well, along those lines, let's start talking about the Diva 24.
Okay, and actually there's some news on the Diva 24, but just to give you an overview of Diva 24. Diva 24 we basically put out at NAB, and you know, we're very proud of this. It's coming out great. We expect to have it around the end of the year. It's taken longer than we had hoped, but then again, I think we put into it all the right stuff. It's a 24-track recorder, and it has 12 mic pre's. It has another 4 line level inputs, and we've made a little engineering change. When it comes out, it will have 24 channels of AES input.
Wow.
Yeah.
So no Dante.
There's no Dante in the machine. We have Dante scheduled for the companion mixing surface. You know, our thoughts on Dante is that there's a lot of stuff going on in this machine. Dante is not something that's suitable for a sound bag, and has very little use on a sound cart per se.
Got it.
You know, if you're going to connect to the outside world, that's another thing. But because we utilize control surfaces, all the mixing is inside the machine anyway.
Sure.
And if you do want Dante, there will be a Dante interface in our mixing panel, and there are separate Dante interfaces. So
there's separate Dante to AES.
Right, and I also am fundamentally against putting all of your eggs in one basket. I mean, if you're a production sound mixer and you've got 24 channels of audio on a Dante stream, and something bad happens, you're down.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that happens all the time. It doesn't, but it's not impossible.
Sure.
I'd rather see 12 individual AES cables carrying that in a single DB25 connector. You know, to me, that's sensible considering, you know, that you're not really giving anything up.
All right.
So, but that's the Dante part of it. We do believe in Dante, and we'll have the Dante compatibility, as I mentioned.
Good.
We record on 3 medias. And another change that we're making is the initial media set was internal drive. We have the internal, I was just looking to see if the drive is actually in this machine, which it is. Because I brought the machine that has the drive. So you just take off the drive door and pull out the drive, and there is your SanDisk Ultra 2 drive.
Wow.
So you can have a multi-terabyte drive in
Not
here.
even on a carrier, it just sort of
No,
slides
not
in.
in a carrier.
That's great.
It's just absolutely just goes right in the machine.
That's great.
A very precision thing.
Yeah.
And we also have 2 compact flash cards on the machine. What we've decided to do, which will be out for the final release of the machine, is we put an eSATA port on the machine as well. So you'll be able to record on the internal SATA drive, as well as a compact flash card and the eSATA drive.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, and CF1 and CF2? And
Well, it's 3 media
pick
simultaneously.
any 3.
Any 3,
Right.
and then you can select any group of channels.
But the internal hard drive is MARF formatted.
We have a change. It's typically MARF. We think it should be MARF.
Yes.
But you can make any of the drives MARF.
Wow.
Yeah, so you must have a MARF drive.
That's
so it
great.
can be a compact flash. You can have a 256 gig compact flash in there.
So if you are having media issues, and let's say you think it might be the hard drive, you can just completely take that offline out of the machine, and the machine will still function.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah. Another thing that we've done is we've changed our MARF system a little bit. So with this machine, people will be able to change the metadata on the MARF drive and have it automatically change on the other drives.
Any of the other drives. That's great.
Now, here's a little something that I want to put out there for our Nomad customers. A benefit to that is because we are doing a little rewrite on the disk operating system, the MARF system, there will be an update available before the end of the year that allows you to have that in Nomad.
Wow.
So if you have a Nomad and you change the metadata on the primary card, it'll automatically change it on the mirror card. So that's a little something for our Nomad customers. It's a free update. It'll be available a little later this year.
This is tremendous.
Well, thank you. But I think the great part about the Diva 24, is you get the 24 tracks, you get a really great form factor. I mean, what we've tried to do is really take the build quality to a level that that we've really never been at before. And when I say quality, I should say I wanted to have a fit and finish that is like a piece of jewelry.
Sure.
I want you to have this in your bag and just absolutely say, that's a beautiful machine. And we've consulted with quite a few people. We came up with the feature of having a detachable control panel. This control panel, there we go. This is actually the front of the machine. So you can buy an extra one, but you can actually take the front of the machine, take the front of the machine off, get a little kit that has this metal plate, and there's a front plate for the machine, and there's a remote cable that attaches to the machine. So not only does this remote the front panel, it also gives you a slate mic and headphone right on this. So this is all you would need on the front of your cart. If you had it over the shoulder, you could be wearing it on the front of you. It is a real touch screen, right over there. Wow. It is a touch screen. It's set up just like a Diva, but actually with improvements, so that it's very easy to touch crosspoint boxes. The learning curve on this machine, if you know a Diva, there is no learning curve. You can just go out there and use it. Without knowing the Diva, 1 or 2 hours, no manual, you'll be up and going.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so we've come up, because we invented multi-track production sound recording with the Diva. We've basically brought all the best bits forward. We've taken, the great part of the Diva, which was the touch screen. We've taken the size of it and basically made it the size of a Diva, but incorporated the Nomad mic input bay.
Sure.
So that in a sound bag, it is very, very space efficient. It's very relatively lightweight.
Yeah. And you could even just put it in a backpack.
You could absolutely put it in the backpack.
Because you have this panel.
Well, that's right. The way it's designed, you could take this, you could take our RX-12, put them both in a backpack, and access everything through the touch screen.
Including the RX-12.
On this panel. Including the RX-12, absolutely.
Amazing.
And
sending remote gain controls, because that also has Zaxcom.
Yeah, any of the 12 faders on the machine, any of these faders can control the mic pre in the machine, but also control the mic pre's in the wireless transmitter seamlessly.
I want to put a call out for questions, and because we're getting close to the end.
I think we're getting there.
Eric asks, how about a Max with a Zaxnet transmitter?
How about a Max with a Zaxnet transmitter? Well, what I really don't want to get into is speculation about product development.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Oh, wait a second. I think you just did, though.
No, I didn't.
All right.
But I'm saying that for any question with a similar tone, that it's very difficult for us to talk about product development.
Okay, understood.
Look, we love Macs. It's a great thing, but I'll say this to you. If you want Macs with the Zaxnet transmitter, buy a Nomad.
Got it.
Because, I mean, more than one person has said, Macs would be great if it recorded on 2 cards and had a Zaxnet transmitter.
And
Well,
that's
that's
what a
Nomad.
Right,
That's
right,
what
right.
it is.
Right.
So, we're talking about a machine that is marginally larger.
Right.
And it gives you 6 faders.
Sure.
So really, the Macs would be the machine to get to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming out here.
Well, my pleasure. This is great.
Yeah, and I've learned a lot, and I do think, with the coming changes to the spectrum, we are going to have to start looking, all of us, looking for better solutions, better problem solvers.
Well, I agree, and I think that we've always concentrated on making sure that we were ahead of the curve. And we want the customers to be ahead of the curve. We don't want someone to, be in a bad position and have to, in an emergency, do something. It should be a controlled, thoughtful process of deciding what gear works best, what gear, fits right for what they have. There's a lot of, legacy gear out there. There's a lot of people that have things like our camera link.
Sure.
Which we didn't talk about.
Sure.
They have camera links, they have plug-on mics, they have a lot of our stuff. And if a customer, production sound mixer, starts with a link or starts with plug-ons and then moves to body packs, there's, it's a very, very broad product line at this point. And I think that, we're just continuing to extend the product range and improve what each part of it can do.
And I appreciate that you're still making sure that it's backwards compatible.
We have never abandoned the compatibility with any wireless transmitter. As long as we can do that technically, and I don't know that will continue forever.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, it's I think there's I like to say there's something for everyone in what we do, and I think that I think that we're doing a good job. I think we have room to improve. We're always pushing quality. We always look at when something goes wrong, why did it go wrong? Is it going wrong in more than one place?
Sure.
If so, what change can we make? It's very, very important to us to get it right the first time. I think that we've made a lot of improvements over the last few years. We're putting out a lot more gear than we used to put out.
Mm-hmm.
We have a bigger company than we had. Things have really, really gone very well for us. And, I'm grateful to the customers, and I'm grateful to those people that, stop to take the time to realize what we do, to, look at the feature set and say, if I had this feature, maybe there's a little bit more, there's an extra menu, there's an extra adjustment.
Yeah.
But I can provide a service to my customer that I can't with other gear. And, when people call me and they say, Glenn, recording transmitter saved the day, never clip saved the day.
Yeah.
That's what we do. That's the great part of this. This is, this is what we love to see, and it makes it all really, really, really worthwhile. And that's
congratulations.
Thank
that's
you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Will you stay with us while I read off about what's coming up next?
Absolutely.
All right.
Can I read some?
Sure. So start with next time today.
Well, next time today at 3:30, Allison Jackson of Don't Think Twice. She's awesome.
Yes, she is.
She's
did
awesome.
you see? And did you see Don't Think Twice?
Never saw it.
Do you know who Mike Birbiglia is?
No idea.
He's a comedian. He directed and a writer-director. He directed Don't Think Twice, all about improv comedy. Recorded incredibly well. by Allison Jackson and her team.
Okay.
So that's why we're
I'm
talking.
sure she's going to be great. You're interviewing?
Yes.
You can't go wrong.
Well, no, I just have to show up.
Come on. Okay. So follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
Yes.
You know, the video archives at Vimeo and YouTube. And don't forget, all the ideas go to info@gothamsound.com.
Yes, we welcome ideas.
You know, people don't understand how important that is. And you should definitely send stuff in because it allows people like you and people like me to do better work and realize what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Peter Schneider.
Glenn Sanders.
Thanks for watching.